Hello and most welcome to 1978 of the H series. We will today continue with David McNeill's article, Growth Points from the Very Beginning. Today we talk about growth points and language evolution. But first, a little bit what we went through last. The gripping gesture is connected to the motorics of gripping and doing things are connected to how we speak and how we understand. So gesture is the unseen connection between language and its meaning. This is the reason for the word or the term holophrases. Holophrases. It's the global take, and it's the gesture that makes for instability. That also makes meaning possible to stream in. Without the instability, there can be no streaming in of meaning. It would be a deadened situation, lacking in the force so badly needed to make sense. I was in this connection also thinking of the D-tone language. The D-tone language doesn't have the power to bring forward anything new. It tries to bring the old forward. So it's also the idea of a static, almost dead meaning, with no life to it, with no vivid. And when I hear this, I think also the empty concepts I had to put up with at university, where everything just were empty jargon. There were no gestures, there were no meaning bearing. There were no growth point that needed the instability. Because without the instability, there can be no meaning whatsoever, no happening. And I will begin the last paragraph and a subtitle here, Growth Points and Language Evolution. We suggest that the initial proto-language would have comprised A, recurrent code-based forms, potentially listable and portable from speech situation to situation. And B, context-determined, global, holistic, imagery-based forms, neither listable nor portable. Neither listable nor portable. This combination would have, we proposed, emerge in GP-like units of cognition. The code component could be simple, even single symbols, but with analytic and combinatoric potentials like those mentioned. It is a new cognitive capacity that we see evolving. It is new, never seen before. and we see it evolving, evolving,
evolving,
evolving.
evolving.
The opposition of semiotic modes carrying the double essence demands that the linguistic side be socially constituted, shared, discrete, repeatable, combinable, and listable. Listable. From the social direction come the semiotic properties that are unlike imagery. Imagery, in turn, has its source in context specific thought processes, rapidly emerging, unlike semiotic moods. Imagery and long-like encodings during ongoing speech is the trick we evolved as species. It is a necessary foundation for human language. Human language. So at the origin, a breakthrough, break, was to create a social standard of predictable symbols that could combine with individually constituted, contextually situated, and ephemeral imagery. Imagery.
Ephemeral,
Ephemeral imagery.
ephemeral, ephemeral, ephemeral.
Our focus now is on the immediate steps that might have taken place in the origin of language, not the rise of linguistic systems as such, but the brain mechanisms creating a thought language hand link. A thought language hand link. What would such more immediate steps have been? Our proposal is that this link was a new way to organize sequences of movements in Broca's area.
Broca's area.
Broca's area. The crucial new step was co-opting of these areas by significance other than those of actions themselves. Actions themselves. And how did other significances gain this power?
Power.
Power. Along with Arbib and McNeill, we propose that it was by making mirror neuron circuits respond to one's own gestures.
making mirror neuron
Neuron circuits.
circuits respond.
Needs loop and mirror neurons. Mirror neurons. George Herbert Mead wrote that gestures become significant symbols when they implicitly arouse in an individual, making them the same response which they explicitly arouse in other individuals. In other individuals. Thus, gesture implies a social other, real or virtual. What was selected in this view is a capacity not present in other primate brains for mirror neurons to respond to one's own gestures as if they were social objects. Imagery in the form of gesture can be shared. Also, imagery that implies a social other is oriented to the socially constituted semiotic of language, meshing smoothly with long-like encodings in the duality we've described. Global synthetic imagery combined with analytic combinatoric long parole. Mead's loop creates a new basis for organizing actions. At the motor level, the loop provides a way for significant imagery to enter and be available to orchestrate Broca's area, giving the gesture the property of chunking. Chunking.
Chunking.
Chunking.
Chunk is cutting.
It's a piece.
Piece, yes, cutting.
A chunk of linguistic output organized around significant imagery rather than an instrumental action. We hypothesized that evolutionary Mead's loop co-opted the brain's mirror neuron circuit. This Mead's loop explains how gestures could reorganize the part of the brain in which complex actions are orchestrated. Ventral premotor cortex and inferior frontal gyrus in the modern brain, so that significances other than actions themselves organize movements. For instance, rotation that abstractly represents a process, rather than the same motor neurons and brain areas signaling the hands to rotate an actual object as a goal-directed action. Goal-directed action. Goal-directed action.
Action.
It is likely that the same neurons are activated.
Activated.
But we are suggesting that the inputs to them differ. This is, of course, Broca's area. The repository of motor mirror neurons, neural circuits not only implicated in the execution of one's own movements, but also capable of recognizing the goal-directed actions of others.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah! Specifically, what we infer about the thought-language handling in the IW case is that the input to the mirror neurons is not sensory information from tangible objects, rather some form of imagery from higher level cognition. Higher level cognition. In chorus. Higher level cognition. This imagery differs from the physical objects of goal-directed actions because shared attention is not sufficiently to ground the meaning. Ground. In the case of visible object of goal-directed action, one can observe another person reach for the object and know the intended goal via activation of the mirror system in you, of course, you. By contrast, in the case of communicating a thought, one observes another gesture, but the goal is only implicit. Implicit somewhere, implicated, implicit somewhere. It is therefore important that Mead's loop first be established to allow for a shared meaning. A shared meaning. We submit that this was one step in the emergence of language. Mead's loop specifically explains how the thought-language hand link revealed by the IW case could have evolved. It is precisely this link, according to the logic of Mead's loop, natural selection would promote, and would promote will pause the first part, 1978.
Good.
Promote.
Discount.
It is able to promote. It does promote, and it has promoted. It was quite a lot in one go. All of a sudden we are introduced to Mead's loop and all that. At the very beginning, we have GPs and language evolution. And the two sides, necessary opposing sides for there to be anything transferable or meaning. So we have the code-based forms and the context-determined global holistic imagery-based forms, which are the gestures. They are not listable nor portable in the sense that they can be transferred. (125). It's a new cognitive capacity that we see evolving. Very important. It's the second line, beginning of the continuing on the third. And how do we understand that ourselves? Well, it's a proposal here. It was by making mirror neuron circuits respond to one's own gestures. So you see clearly here, you see your own gestures and thereby you think. The thinking is not situated anywhere really. It wouldn't even be fair to say it's in between. You have to see your own gestures or you merely react to them. The mirror neurons are implicit in this or complicit. The fifth line on Mead's loop and mirror neurons, or fourth. What was selected in this view is a capacity not present in other primate brains for mirror neurons to respond to one's own gestures as if they were social objects. So this is how we come to understand our own thinking. Once more, there's a new duality evolving here, and it will take some digestive action to have that fixed in. So at the end of that paragraph, we hypothesize that evolutionary Mead's loop co-opted the brain's mirror neuron circuit. So mirroring is widely important, both so we can learn how we move about ourselves, but also how we learn other people's gesture and movement. Both gestures and motor movements, both of them. On the beginning of 126, this Meads loop explains how gestures could reorganize the part of the brain in which complex actions are orchestrated. Ventral premotor cortex, inferior frontal gyrus in the modern brain. So that significance other than actions themselves, listener, organize movements. For instance, rotation that abstractly represents a process rather than the same motor neurons, and brain areas signaling the hands to rotate an actual object as a goal-directed action. It is likely the same neurons are activated. But we are suggesting that the inputs to them differ. This is, of course, Broca's area, the repository of motor mirror neurons. Neural circuits not only implicated in the execution of one's own movements, but also capable of recognizing the goal-directed actions of others. This is almost that should be done anything to the screen, but we can't reach the screen with the camera, I think.
Yes. I should stop sharing. You pause. We can fix it. I stop.
So it's a bit like this. Your mirror neuter, the Meads loop, the mirror neuron circuitry can see the action of your own gesture, and together with the combination of langue parole, the synthetic and the analytic, you will understand what you are thinking, so to speak. So you don't solely think, you understand your thinking. So maybe even that thinking is after you see, oh, I did think that. And that is not really the thinking itself. The thinking is the act of moving your gestures and speaking, either silently to your own inner self or innerness and outerness, because the gestures are constantly there. The second thing is the movement here sort of reads off the movement on the outside and can understand my want to sort of grab a pen to understand other people's wishes, where they're going, where they are situated. And I would say even space and time itself comes from here, because there's no other way of timing other than reading off movements with the mirror neurons. So they mirror others' activity, and it's neither perceived to be outside yourself or inside yourself, and not either, oddly enough, your movements, in contrast, for instance, to Kalle's over here. The mirror neurons do not make a difference. And once more, we have Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer is the Swiss engineer who constructed things that with sheer movement learned. It seems that we are actually the same here. Movement is what we learn from. mainly thanks to the discovery of mirror neurons, we do understand this as well. Without that, we wouldn't be able to understand that we mirror ourselves, we learn more about movement, and then we can also see movement outside ourselves, understand it. It does not have to be strictly seeing. It's all inclusive of all senses. So it doesn't take one singular thing. It's your own movement, your own motor movement also that sort of synchronizes with other people. And I like also the movement is, of course, a spiral. It's a vortex. So vortex are recurring in this strengthening way. And for each feedback, it becomes stronger and stronger. Thank you. And we can go to the text again. So the whole world becomes understandable thanks to this. And now the foremost important role of gesture becomes even more important. There is no thinking without it. And I think by now we abandon completely the idea that thinking is inside the head. And I would say even what we normally call thinking is an afterthought. So first I think, and then I maybe reflect on my thinking and say, oh, that was the thing I was thinking. I transfer it into the long part. It becomes language. It's still good, but strictly speaking, it's not the same as thinking. It's the afterthought. Kalle Lundahl, please come in and share your thoughts. It's a
Okay, let me go to the key phrase here. That is this. I will repeat it since it's so important, and it was on page 125. So it was for making mirror neuron circuits respond to one's own gestures.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So let me to drive home, the point home. We could compare with the visit to a doctor, and where the doctor tests your knees by taking a hammer, and you react.
Yeah. The knee reflex, yeah.
The knee reflex, and this could imply that since we only passively react to things, that we don't have our own free will. So okay, this theory has the good points, namely that it implies that there is a kind of vortex in the ocean, so to say.
Yeah.
But the negative thing is that it might imply that gestures, okay, they are the origin of the vortex, but they also and that we only passively in second hand react, think, meaning that we don't really have free will since we only passively react to gestures. That's my objection, and I would say that guessing, of course, that they must be at the same time, thinking and gestures must be at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. It's even hard to say which is on the same time. I know you can't see the screen now, but it's a bit, this is happening a bit simultaneous because movement is the only way of having time, so to speak, before after. It comes in movement. So we start to read off our own gestures, but we at the same time read off, so to speak, movements from other people. And we learn and we grow that way in the learning habit. And that also makes the gestures more complicated. By time goes, there is a progression. We learn just like the robots of Pfeiffer. And as you say, maybe it will be actually quite fair when you speak of an infant. They will be able only to react more or less. So they are more in the strand of passive. But whereas you develop your thinking capacity, you will be more able to do the choices depending on your skill. That will vary. It will be not the same for all everyone, but you will be able to decide for yourself to speak. So in their theory, free will is a matter of level of skill. So some have more free will, some other have less. It's depending on the means loop. The more ability you have to mirror, the more you can gain when it comes to freedom, because otherwise you don't know what's happening. It's like you grow an ability to think. It's not God-given. This is definitely what I can say. I'm not sure about the other stuff I say now, but it's definitely not tabula rasa. As you say, we got reflexes from the very beginning. For instance, the gripping reflex was a little small infant. If you give something to him or her, he would grip it. And as we mentioned earlier, it's very important for the development of gestures that these reflexes are present. And they are in the beginning sheer reflexes. You don't have a choice. You will grab. But you see, I do have a choice. I can put it in my hand and I can choose not to grab it.
Now I know what to say. So to make it clearer, we can compare with the Sicilian theater, the puppet.
Oh, the puppeteer, yeah.
Puppeteer. That this is really close to that. That is the dolls in the theater doesn't have any real will. The gestures are made by somebody else outside of the theater.
Yeah.
But where does the free will come in? That I think that they miss is what also Alexander observed. Where is the free will? When you can say no.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
At the very last moment, when you can stop yourself.
Yes.
Because the puppets can never say no.
No.
While this model by McNeill company, it implies that you only reflecting passively to everything. Gestures control everything. It's in their, since they are, it's in their interest, so to say, to promote gestures. But it also promotes, I think, puppet thinking. So I say that when you can say no, children, little very small children, cannot never say no. They don't have any. Yes, they have some free will, but it's not developed.
No, they cannot inhibit, as it's called. But the process of inhibition will feel differently, and there are actually grown-ups who can't help themselves for grabbing. Those cases do exist. So the more you can inhibit, the more free will you will gain from reflexes. So you don't have to be controlled by your reflexive gesturing. And of course, once gesture becomes more complicated, that could be very different, a big difference. They are not the same in everybody, and they are context dependent. But the more skilled you are, the more context you will feel. And this is a huge difference from the only Saussurian take, where language is already out there, and everybody have equal access to it. There's no development, and therefore it's very hard to. Saussure wouldn't say there's no free will, but actually, when you go into the system, there is no free will, because every word is constructed in advance. It's already out there.
We need to enter.
Well, I happily end there. I think that was enough because it's a rather complicated little paragraph, definitely. Mirror neurons, maybe it's a new thing for you, Kalle, as well.
Yes, it's a new thing.
It was a surprise to me. I really like them coming up here. And I say thank you very much. for participating. Have a very pleasant day, morning, or afternoon, wherever you are. Bye bye for now.